morning. So, if you want to work for a fast paced company and if you're a fan of constant change, you might want to tune up and turn up the volume. We have a guest today the company that currently he works for grew by 70%. And if you're into cloud services, you might want to actually turn up the volume. Let's welcome Kevin on 10 Minutes of Hiding Wisdom, who will enlighten us with his wisdom. Hi, Kevin. How are you
Hi,
doing
Amina.
today?
Very well. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Kevin, can you tell us about your journey, how you ended up with the company that you're currently working with, and how just your transition towards work and everything has been so far?
Sure. Well, I've been in the recruiting industry for a lot longer than I care to admit. Um, and I've worked in all aspects of it at all levels. Began in what was considered traditional engineering many years ago, and transitioned into what was known as software engineering, which is now considered traditional engineering, I think. And IT and cloud. It's kind of a natural progression. The last few years, I've mostly been focused on working with startup companies in the cutting edge technology spaces. Has been my specialty. So I was working as in the an RPO model, recruiting process outsource, for a very long time. And Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, things got affected at that previous company, and there were some reorganizations and not enough work. And I was lucky enough to I actually got referred by someone who I'd worked with at the last company I was at over to Caylent, where I am now, because he had actually interviewed and he thought that the person they were looking for was me. And I guess they were, because
you
I got the
know,
job. Uh,
you know how they say that one door closes and another one opens. So things worked out for you, and I'm really glad.
Absolutely. I mean, that's not to jump ahead of the game at all, but one of the things that I can always say is, nurture connections. Always keep in touch with people, whether you leverage it through social media or through traditional just calling and emailing with people. Always try to stay in touch with people that you pass on in life, because you never know where things can be and what types of opportunities can be there. That's something
That's very true.
that yeah,
That's
you
very
never
true.
know.
So you meant, of course, that's very true. So you mentioned that you used to be into engineering and then you got into recruitment. Why did the transition take place? Like, how come you decided to go from engineering to actually
Well, actually, no,
recruitment?
I was doing non software engineering recruiting, and then got into software recruiting. Yes, I
Oh,
actually, but
okay.
my
So,
my shift was even more different. Actually, I can tell you my true origin story. Sorry to confuse you on that. I actually worked in retail uh,
oh, wow.
management. Yes, which I did not enjoy. I was working at a auto parts retailer a number of years ago, and we hired a part time cashier, and it turned out that this woman was working part time because she was getting her own business going, and she was in what was then called the contract recruiting space. And so uh, we're hiring temporary and mechanical and electrical engineers. And she had worked alongside, I'm from the Boston area, she had worked alongside a number of people who all went on to form their own companies from the company that they worked at with her. So she'd had this incredible list of connections, a Rolodex, as we used to call it. And she just, we struck up a conversation one day, and she says, why are you doing this job? You don't really seem to be enjoying it. And I'm like, no, I don't. And she said, I really think you could do very well in recruiting. And I had looked at it in the past. That was something I was interested in. I did an internship in what was called personnel at the time when I was in college, and it was focused on recruiting. They just weren't a whole lot of opportunities, and I got stuck in retail. And so she got me in touch, and I interviewed with a whole bunch of people, and one person gave me the opportunity from there, and then slowly progressed, like I said, through mechanical engineering, recruiting, through software, to now where I'm working in the cloud.
Wow. So as in like it was definitely a journey where you explored your options and then you decided, okay, and considering you are still in that field, you must have really liked it. So things worked out for you because at first, I mean, the transition from retail to actually hiring is something that's definitely inspiring because I think people usually are afraid for change. And the first step that people usually take is the hardest. But
Hmm.
you went a long way. So I think that's very inspiring for a lot of people out there who are afraid to like take a risk or even afraid to take a chance. So thank you for
Exactly.
sharing that.
My
So
pleasure.
you've had, of course. So you've had experience with hiring non-tech people, and then you've had experience with hiring people from the tech space. And there's a lot of demand specifically for the tech space these days. So what, according to you, are some skills for tech people that would make them successful when they're looking for jobs, according to you, as a recruiter?
Okay. Um, well, it's always tricky in some senses because a lot of times people end up chasing the previous technology, and it's you always want to. And it's almost impossible to know what the next thing is going to be, right? But the biggest key is to really have a good understanding, I think, of how everything works, not just how to. I know how to program in Java. Well, that's great. What is it that you're doing? Try to understand the ins and outs of things. So that way you can adapt and change as you go on. Because if you just know one programming language, and that pigeonholes you, and you can't grow. But if you understand how computer infrastructure works, how software is delivered on through the web, how networking works, and all that, gives you a much broader level of knowledge that you can apply and you can pick up and say, oh, okay, I understand this. And so always, uh, try to always keep yourself open and don't pigeonhole yourself into one type of technology. Uh, and that'd be the biggest suggestion I would make to people. So take courses where you can. Try to get, especially with everything is moving to virtual and cloud-based type things. So get an interest and maybe take a course in Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud platform or Azure. Those are the main ones. But just always be open to learning. And like I said, don't don't consider yourself too too limited in your experience.
That's wonderful advice. That's wonderful advice because I think people usually are like, oh, this is what I'm really good at, so I'll just keep on going.
Mm.
But the world is constantly changing, technology is constantly being introduced. So you need to be on top of your game because someone else will learn and then you will be behind. So
Absolutely.
I think, yeah,
And
that's
to
definitely just like,
give a to give an example of something like that, like years ago, not too long ago, I should say, there was an actual job title of Oracle Database Administrator. And what could you do? You could only work in Oracle and be a database administrator. And a lot of people did very well and had some very good jobs with that. But Oracle still a good company and all that, but they are no longer the standard in databases. There's so many different options, and if you put all your knowledge into
of
working in
course.
Oracle, that precludes you from being other things. So don't pigeon don't get too tied into one type of specific technology.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And that's really good advice. So you mentioned
Yes.
that you're working at
Hmm.
Caylent. So maybe can you tell us about the company itself and whether you guys are hiring and what kind of skills are you looking for
Absolutely,
if you
absolutely.
are
So
looking for
Caylent,
specific
we
people?
are a cloud native and DevOps consulting company. And as you alluded to at the beginning, we 70% was the last uh, percentage that we had figured. It's probably more now. We're founded in 2015, but we've been seeing an incredible amount of growth in the last 2 years, especially. The We're just under 100 employees right now. We basically we're outsourced. Our main thrust of business is outsourced DevOps and cloud native development focused on Kubernetes implementation, especially. And it's all cutting edge new technology. We're primarily working with startups or small organizations that need the assistance with building up their DevOps. And it's either short-term or long-term engagements. For some organizations, we've been working with them for years, and we're committed to work with them for years, where we do all their DevOps. There's some companies where maybe they need to build their platforms, get going, go to market quickly. They engage with us, and then they hire a full-time staff, and we hand off. We primarily, we all our clients are U.S. based. Uh, the main thrust of our outsourced business model right now is based in Latin America. So we've been doing a lot of hiring in South America and Central America. Hopefully you have some podcast listeners there. And we offer a great opportunity there because it's cutting edge technology. There's a lot of talented people there, and they don't have the opportunity to work with some of these technologies. The, the DevOps culture is not as prevalent in a lot of organizations, and there's a DevOps is a totally different way. It's not just a function; it's a way of doing things, which is kind of hard to explain if you're not into it. But if you're, we are all about DevOps, and anyone who's interested in true DevOps, that's Caylent. We also are expanding our sales team quite broadly. The sales are and our support level teams are all U.S. based. We are moving. We just began a professional services division too, which works as a different model than our outsourced DevOps, where it provides more short-term type projects there. And we're looking for people U.S. based to provide those services, and it's all focused around broad public cloud experience, primarily with AWS, but with the GCP and Azure as well. Solution architecture, so developing solutions. Those are the main areas that we're looking for in that. And then for the engineering side in LATAM, it's all again focused on public cloud and people who are really committed to DevOps.
Well, there's a lot of hiring going on, so I can understand why the company grew 70% by this year. So, if you're specifically from North America or Latin America, you should definitely reach out to me and I will put you in contact with Kevin. Kevin, our time is up, but it was a pleasure learning from you and your experience, especially from the transition from being a retail individual to actually going into hiring and hiring such talented individual. It was definitely a pleasure learning from you, and
Thank you very much
I
for your
hope you
time,
have a
and you
good
too.
rest of your day.